This is the sound check.
Supernatural sucked the last season.
White Castle Across the Eras features Smart Balance, a honey lemon value sized meal that is available to anyone living in the Poland district.
What?
Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this brand new episode of the CrossGen podcast. I'm your host, Walt, and I'm joined today by the two Nephilims of the household. Did I use that phrase right? Or is that totally
Unless you're an archangel, no.
wrong? Well, sometimes you guys think that I act like an archangel.
Okay, this is AJ.
Eli.
All right. Well, I gave you guys the hook. I gave you guys the segue. So what are we talking about? Well, what are you guys talking about? Because
Pretty trashy season finale of a show.
We are talking about
Christ.
occurrences of phenomena that are unexplained.
Pretty
Oh,
trash
shoot.
phenomena.
AJ, shut that phone off.
It might be off.
Okay. So you were saying what? What were you saying?
Something
About
about
what?
the phenomena, the unexplained. Really bad. Oh God, what was that show called?
Was it
The
bad?
Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone.
That was a
Twilight
really
Zone was
bad
pretty good.
Twilight Zone plug. I didn't do very well, but that's sci-fi. This is fantasy, so I just gotta say. Wait, why did I just say that last part?
No.
It's supernatural.
Carry on my wayward son.
There
No?
be peace.
You're not
You'll
gonna-
be in pieces when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest. You just got decapitated.
Don't you cry no more. All right, so Supernatural just ended
It was trash.
its 15th season, which is
Trash.
its final season.
Yes,
right?
15 long seasons.
We have thoughts about the 15th season, but I guess we'll get to that later because I think this is going to be more of a retrospective of Supernatural. And just so that everybody knows, out of all three of us here, AJ is the SPN fan extraordinaire. So if you guys have any questions that you want to ask about Supernatural, I guarantee you he'll know the answer to it. And he's been watching it for 15 straight years. Well, no, not 15 straight years. You caught it. You caught it. How did you
I
start
actually-
watching Supernatural? Let's put it that way.
Whenever you guys would drop me off at like grandma's house, I'd catch it in snippets on TNT.
so
And
it's
eventually,
grandma's fault.
yeah, because she used to like watching it in the mornings. So eventually, I found my way onto Netflix, and I was like, "Oh, hey, look, it's here! Wow, there are 5. No, at the time, there were 7 seasons on Netflix, if I remember
You
correctly.
jumped on late.
Yeah. So then at that point, I was like, "Okay, let's do it."
Okay. Well, we jumped on even later than that, right?
Oh yeah,
So you guys have been watching it.
me
Without
longer
us,
than him, but
right?
yeah.
We jumped on what in season 10?
You guys
10.
officially jumped on at around season 11.
Well, for
like,
them it
yeah,
was
it
like
was
12.
11 or no, it was more so 11 because at around 11 is where that's where we started dropping off with our cousin in Long Island, and then we started watching it here. I remember.
At
Just take
11?
my word on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
something like
But
that.
then you
They-
guys kept going on and off, on and off
Yeah, so it took them at least like
until season 13, 14.
And then we caught up in.
we caught up in
Wow.
season 15. We caught up in the end of season 14. Right?
No,
No, we
you
caught up
guys.
season 15. We finished 14 2 episodes into 15.
No, I'm talking about your very first, like all the way you guys starting at season 1,
Yeah, we started at season 1 around
season 11.
season 11. And the only reason we caught up
It was because of the lockdown.
because of the lockdown. It was supernatural all day, every day. Right?
Yeah.
But then we caught up, me and mom, around season 14 going into season 15.
Yep.
So season
you
15 we saw it fresh,
Are you
live.
Sure?
I am very sure.
I'm pretty sure they started in season 12 because it took them like a year until they finally started.
No,
to watch
because
it.
it was season 11 when I was talking about big players like the Darkness. They were like, "Oh, what the heck are you talking about?" And
But-
that's how I know.
Even though I wasn't watching,
Yes, you know everything.
I know
Whatever.
everything, right?
Yeah,
Was I
yeah,
wrong?
yeah,
Was I wrong?
Yeah.
I knew everything. And
Yes,
didn't
you
I
know
call what
everything.
was going to happen in season 15?
Well, I mean, everyone kind of knew, to be honest.
Not really.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
it was pretty heavily set up since season 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I called it.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, anyway, let's start with season. So Supernatural is interesting because Supernatural is 15 seasons long, right? But it's kind of broken up in eras, right?
Yes, it
I
is.
guess
Yeah.
that's the best way to call it. So I'm going to let you take this part away because you're the expert on this. So
All right.
go for it.
So the first 5 seasons were run by the show's creator, Eric Kripke,
Who is currently doing
The Boys.
The
Yeah.
Boys?
And this was the apocalypse arc, and you have some sub arcs like Searching for Dad, The Psychic Kids, Dean Steele, all this really awesome stuff.
So why don't we set up the story? Like
Yeah.
what is Supernatural really about? Like who are the characters and how did 15 seasons come out of that first episode?
So it all started one night with a regular nuclear family: Mary Winchester, John Winchester, a young Dean Winchester, and an infant Sam Winchester. Mary Winchester, I'm not going to go into how this happened because that's explained later on, but Mary Winchester goes to see Sam in his, I guess, nursery?
Yep.
That's what you
Yeah.
call it? Yeah.
Yep.
And she's killed there by the yellow-eyed demon, or the thing that killed Mom, as it's later called.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting how she's killed?
Well, yes, I was getting to that.
Okay.
So, she screams as this thing is killing her, and John is like, "Ugh, I'm waking up. I was watching TV and I fell asleep. Let's go upstairs, see what's going on." He goes in and he's like, "Oh, okay, so Sam's fine." But then he sees a drop of blood. Then he sees another one. Then he looks up, and Mary Winchester is pinned to the ceiling and just spontaneously erupts into flames. And basically, their whole house burns down, and John and the 2 boys make it out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets John on a course for vengeance, and he raises his 2 sons, Dean and Sam, in the life of hunting, which is basically they track down things that go bump into the night, things that are evil, and they kill them with fire.
Yep.
Or beheading, or stakes, or silver, or take your pick.
Guns.
Yeah,
So
guns.
the cast is comprised of John Winchester. So he's played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, which
Mhm.
is an awesome character actor that you've seen in plenty of places. He was in the movie The Losers, which was pretty good. He was also in The Watchmen, and currently, right now, he's in The Walking Dead as Negan. Mary Winchester, the mom, was played by Samantha Smith, and then you have the 2 stars of the show, right? Although in my opinion, one star is bigger than the other, but that goes without saying. Jensen Ackles plays
Dean
Winchester, and Jared Padalecki plays
Sam.
Sam Winchester. And then, of course, you have other characters, which once we get to them, I guess we'll name them because there's a lot of cast
Yeah.
to this show. So, all right then. So Mary Winchester is dead. John decides to go hunting, and he's bringing his kids along.
And
Well, mostly, right?
yes, but but the point to take away is he raises them like they're warriors.
One more than others, though. One more than the other, though.
Sam.
Because Sam eventually opts to leave the life and go to Stanford to pursue an education as like a lawyer.
Hmm.
Yep. And it's going good.
He tries to have a normal life
It's going good so far.
until
Dean shows up.
dun dun dun.
Because, and I'm going to quote it word for word, Dad's gone on a hunting trip. And we haven't seen him in a. God damn it. I forgot the quote. And I haven't. And we have. Hold on. It's Dad's been on a hunting trip and I haven't heard from him in a couple of weeks. Oh, damn it. I used to know that one like by heart. But basically, Dad's missing and he needs Sam's help to find him. And, they do a little gig to start off, but Sam is ultimately just doing this to find the dad and, go back to college. But so they end up working a case and they find some kind of leads. They find his journal, which is basically like a repository of everything he knows about hunting things, the father. But when Sam comes back to Stanford because like, okay, I gotta tap out now. I gave you the lead. Yeah, I gotta go, Dean. And Dean's like, oh, we could have made a good team. And Sam's like, come on, education, life.
Sam's always been the one that wants the normal life more than Dean, right?
Yeah.
That's always been his thing. No.
Yes. Yeah, you're right to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And so once Sam gets back to Stanford, he's presumably going to go back to his normal life. But instead of going back to his normal life, he comes home to his girlfriend dying in the exact same way that his mom died.
Up on the ceiling in a bed of fire, basically, right?
On the ceiling.
On the ceiling in a bed of fire on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Because she's not actually really burning. It's like the air around her on the ceiling is burning, right? And she's like stuck up there in the middle.
Well,
then
what it
eventually she
actually
burns.
is because they actually kind of explain the process. You are on fire, but as you're on fire, your body is disintegrating. So,
Okay.
like, your skin's on fire, and it just kind of like a fuse. You go until boom.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a very
that
horrible
actually
way
kinda
to die.
sucks even
Yeah.
more. So, all right. So that's what gets Sam into the life, right?
For reals.
Okay. So now we've got both Sam and Dean, and they're hunting to find their father, who was missing because he was hunting.
Yes.
And that's when we meet. Is that the part, or is that leading up to the part where we meet um, Yellow Eyes?
Well, yes, actually, we meet him in the first season. Uh, they have the Colts, but they kind of miss a few times.
So
And the Colt,
explain
yes.
what the Colt is, because there might be people who don't know what the Colt
Yes.
is.
So a couple
What's the Colt?
episodes earlier, they're doing their thing, and eventually they stumble upon this little nugget, or something their father was actually chasing up also. So there's a gun made by a guy in the wild, wild west named Samuel Colt, who also happens to be a very famous hunter and a maker of guns, hence the name the Colt. And this gun can kill anything in creation.
So this is just kind of the start of a trend in Supernatural, because Supernatural loves to have its mystical weapons, right? There's one of many that follow this, right?
Yes. So you have the Colts. They they actually grab it off like a nest of vampires. Yeah, it was a fun episode. Um, so they track down Azazel. They're not successful the first few rounds. Either they miss, or what happens at the very end of the episode, Azazel possesses their dad and starts tearing them apart. I mean, Yellow Eyes. Oh, damn it. Anyway, I'm gonna go over that little lore bit later. So, possesses the dad. They, the dad actually gains control for a second and says to shoot him. They don't do it. Azazel escapes, and at that point, you know, they get into a hospital because demons. Fighting demons is
Because
not
demons. I
fighting.
like that. There should be like a T-shirt. Because demons. You know?
Yes, fighting demons is not fun. Lots of injuries.
So Supernatural does a very interesting thing with demons, because demons, when we normally think about demons, we think about demons in the sense that they're these like dark figures with probably horns on their heads and red eyes and big wings and long creepy nails, right? That's not how Supernatural portrays their demons though, right?
Nope.
They ground a lot of this stuff
In real world lore.
in real world, exactly, right? So demons are different in what respect?
In that they don't actually hold a body on Earth. So what they have to do is they have to possess someone. And since they don't have a body in the corporeal world, they're often portrayed as like a slender cloud of black smoke. It's like a serpent almost. And basically that thing shoves itself down your gullet, in your
Yeah.
mouth,
Yeah.
and that's how you get possessed.
All right.
And that kind of follows the ancient Greek, because the way they conceptualize the soul is that the soul is like breath, like a final breath.
Mm-hmm.
So, breath, like a mist, something that comes out of your mouth, and now it's on the inverse, and that actually ties into a little bit of the lore later.
Yeah.
But basically, that's how they came up with their
They're,
concept of demons.
they're like black smoke that you inhale very forcefully.
Yes.
So the first 5 seasons, um, what really happens? Do they ever find the father? And I know the answer, but I'm for the people that don't,
Well, yes, they found him halfway through season 1,
Mm-hmm.
but he dies at the start of 2.
Boom.
Oof.
Yes, and the way he dies, and this is going to set another trend in the show, is that in order to save Dean, who was actually dying, because remember I said they got into a car crash at the end of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dean had the worst of the injuries. And so what Dad does is he goes, well, I know the lore with you dudes. I'm the most familiar with it, so I'm going to offer you a deal. You want me dead? You can have me. I'll give you my soul, but you have to heal him. And the deal goes through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the other big characters um, in Supernatural is a guy that we didn't see in season 1, right?
No.
Um,
So it's
what was his name? Eli? What?
Castio.
Oh,
so to preface the seasons leading up to that character, season 2 sees the continuance of the hunt for Azazel, and they kill him at the end of that season, but not before releasing an army of demons.
which they do quite frequently.
Yes. Season 3 deals with that army. You see some significant demonic figures there. But most notably, we get introduced to the villainess for the next 2 to 3 seasons, and that's Lilith, the first demon. She kills Dean because even before that, Dean sold his soul to a demon, much like his father did, because Sam died in season 2.
I suspect that people that are listening are hearing a theme here. Dean dies, Sam loses his soul. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lot of sacrifice.
Yes.
So Dean dies at the end of season 3 because they came to collect his soul. Start of season 4. That's where you're introduced to the concept of angels, and they are vastly more powerful than demons. And they're here for a very specific reason. But the first one we meet is named Castiel, and he is going to be in for the long run because he comes to be like their guardian and like a guide as the seasons go on. And so to wrap up season 4, something I forgot to mention about season 1. Season 1, we realize, or rather we're introduced to the fact that Sam has powers.
Oh my gosh.
So in season 4, we see him expand on those powers. And they're a little, the way he gets to them is a little questionable, and it's a theme throughout the season. And so season 4 centralizes around the fact that Lilith is here for a reason. And that's because she's trying to break the 66 seals, which are to free the devil from the cage, and then, hey, the apocalypse begins. And at first, it seems like the angels are there to help you. But that's like Guy Kripke. Nothing can ever be simple. Because it turns out the angels want it to happen. And so they're purposefully throwing the match so that the demons can win and release Lucifer. And Cass, at the very last second, actually opts to help the brothers Winchester. And that is the first time he dies. And of course, in a very dramatic turn of events, they find out, so, you can't break the seal. The last one, you really can't do it this way. And basically, Sam kills Lilith, which is actually how the final seal is broken. And then, boom, season 5. Lucifer.
Apocalypse.
Yes.
Yep. So apocalypse. So just so you know, before we continue, I had to look this up, and this is all the times prior to season 15. Dean Winchester has died 114 times in the show.
Plus the near infinite amount of times for that one episode.
I think that's included in there.
What?
No, I
So-
don't think so.
So 106 of his deaths were from season 3 episode Mystery Spot.
Okay, yeah.
So-
So then, okay.
Oh.
It
So-
takes that into account.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a lot of times for him to die, especially in one episode. 106 times, that's a lot of dying. But like you said, now we're introducing one of my favorite characters on the show. None other than Lucifer, who's played by Mark Pellegrino. He is probably one of the snarkiest versions of the devil that I think I've ever seen, aside from Lucifer that's on Netflix.
Yeah,
But he's pretty cool.
he is. And so season 5 sees the boys deal with him and completely stopping the apocalypse, because the whole point of the apocalypse is that Lucifer is supposed to fight his older brother Michael, and that's referred to as the Battle of Armageddon. And so basically, when these two clash, the world is like going to go up in flames, Dragon Ball Z style, because of the scale of the fight. But there's a catch-22.
There always is.
Archangels are nearly impossible to kill, and at the time they were introduced, it was believed that they actually couldn't be killed at all, so that you couldn't go down that avenue. To complicate things, because angels, like demons, can't just appear on Earth, they have to take a vessel. It turns out that Michael's vessel is Dean, and Lucifer's vessel is Sam. So that complicates things even more, because now these guys can't just kill them. They have to actually get them to say yes, because the whole point with angels is that you need that yes in order to,
It's very much like vampire lore in one sense, right? Because you need to be invited in, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same way. They take that and they kind of switch it around. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
And so, they try pulling out all the stops first because one thing they do, they just don't like follow. Like, there's very clearly a plan, but they say, screw the plan. We got to do things our way.
The angels,
No,
the demons.
no,
No,
Sam and Dean.
Sam and Dean. Okay.
So,
I get confused with those guys because you know what? They're all over the map. You know what I'm saying? Especially the demons and the angels.
yeah.
They're always constantly switching sides depending on the story, right?
hmm
So okay.
So they have their shots, they fail. And before we get to the end of the season, we're introduced to yet another character who's going to be a long-standing
Hey.
throughout the seasons,
My
and
boy.
that is the demon Crowley.
Crowley.
Hey.
That's mom's favorite, right?
That's my favorite too.
Yep. So Crowley is played by none other than
Mark
Mark
Sheppard.
Shepard, who's also on Doom Patrol.
Yes, I was going to say
DC's
that.
Doom Patrol. Plays a very interesting character. He's very Crowley on that show, also, right?
Oh, I have
He's
to
got
get up to
some
that.
he's got some Crowleyisms in there.
Yeah,
So,
he is.
but he's another awesome character. A guy that at the beginning he's kind of like really straight up, like almost not terrifying, but he's kind of like a scary dude, right?
Yeah.
He's straight up.
Like, if
Don't
you're
mess with him.
like, Lucifer is scary, but this guy would be like the next up and coming to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not going to go into the whole scare tier because there is different tiers of who's more badass than the other, but I'm just going to push through that because we're going to be here forever. So eventually they come up with a way to try and circumvent the apocalypse, but in order to do that, Sam kind of has to say yes. So he does. And the fight almost goes down, but at the very end, Sam is able to subdue the devil in his mind and is able to jump back into the cage that they released him from,
Mm-hmm.
along with Michael. And that's the end of season 5. And that should have been where it ended because things wrapped up relatively perfectly.
Until
But because because the CW said, "Wow, you guys have awesome ratings. You should make more." They ended up doing more. But this is the point where we switch off writers because Kripke says, "Well, I thought that's the end of my story. That's it." So he kind of stays on as like a consultant, but he's not like running things.
Right. He's just kind of overseeing things.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask a quick question. You're gonna have to refresh my memory. When Sam jumps in and uh, puts Lucifer in the cage, right? When he's
Yes.
there, is that the one where the other Winchester brother jumps
Yes. So Adam.
in? I bring this up because this is a point of contention for like a lot of Supernatural fans,
yes.
right? So there's an episode in that season, right? Season
No,
4.
even before that, in season 1 or 2,
Oh, is it that early?
we're first introduced to Adam Milligan, who is
Okay.
their half brother. He dies
Right.
in like 1 and 2. He's brought back in season 5 because the angels and the demons, they haven't been able to get Sam and Dean to say yes. It's been pissing them off. So they bring back Adam as a plan B because Dean isn't saying yes to Michael. So Michael's like, all right, well, it's not perfect, but we have the other kid from the same bloodline. He'll work.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam, while it looks like he's just going to do it at first, is like, why not? You know, things happen. He doesn't want to, but then he ends up having to. He does. And so Adam is the one who Michael is possessing when he's dragged into the cage with Sam and Lucifer.
And we don't see him for another 10 seasons.
And the reason why this is a point of contention is because with the Winchester brothers, it's family first. Family is the most important thing to them. So when it looks like there were parts where you could have brought him back, because in season 6 there's an offer like, oh well, I can swing by the cage and do a thing, but
Mhm.
point is he doesn't come back for another 10 seasons, and it's like kind of contradictory
Yeah, he's
to
like
their
totally
whole.
forgotten. Like it's almost to the point where Sam and Dean are forbidden to say the word Adam.
Yeah, because
You know?
and even when they bring him up, it's like, oh
Ugh.
yeah,
Ugh.
who's that again? It's funny.
That's bad. All right. So we've gotten past the first 5 seasons that Kripke so masterfully shaped. Things start to go off the rails a little bit, right?
No, a
Not
lot,
so,
a
not
lot.
no.
No, it
I
gets.
don't agree with
I
you.
think it's okay up until there, but it gets worse later.
In like
know.
season 8. There.
No, I don't even agree with you there.
Well, that's my opinion.
So
Season
this
8.
era is now. Which era is this one?
This is now the Sarah Gamble era.
Okay, and how long does this last?
2 seasons.
2 seasons. What's the big plot point that she tries to push through these 2 seasons? Is there like a
So
big
the big
storyline?
yes. This explores. So we had all of your angel demon lore, even though the show started out as purely monsters. So now we revisit monsters and we go into their origins. And what do we find out? A, monsters don't go to either heaven or hell, they go to another dimension called purgatory. And Crowley, because when Michael and Lucifer got slapped into the cage, power vacuums opened up on both sides. So you have Crowley fighting his own little civil war in hell, and you have Castiel, the brother's confidant, who
Played
is
by
fighting.
played
Yeah,
by Misha Collins.
yeah, by Misha Collins, who's up in heaven fighting another one of these all powerful archangels. So they need a way to consolidate power. And one of the ways they want to do that is by tapping into the oil foundries, per se, of purgatory, because souls are power. They find it. Cass gets a big power boost, but not without a catch 22. Going to be a lot of those. When he absorbed all the power he could from purgatory, he also brought something else to Earth.
Yes, I
And
remember
that
those.
was the very first monsters, the Leviathans,
You
also
like
called the Old Ones.
Did you like the Leviathan Z?
The Leviathans were, you know what? Okay, season 6
That's where Cass is actually turns out to be working with Crowley.
and
I should mention
7.
that.
Season 6 and 7 were half bad, but like 8 through 15 were just like it kept going straight down, straight down. Especially when 12, it really shows.
Okay, so you were talking about the Leviathans.
I know, but I'm just saying. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay.
The Leviathans were a little weird because the Leviathans
They were unconventional.
Yeah, they were supposed to be like these all powerful things, and they got dispatched relatively easy.
Oh.
Do I am I not? But no, okay. So then you know what? Then maybe what I'm thinking of is Purgatory, because in Purgatory they were wimps and wusses, right?
That's a problem for season 15. We'll get to that.
Okay. So the Leviathans, and then you had the one big Leviathan guy, right?
Dick Roman.
Yes, and he was like a
He
what
was a leader.
He was a leader, but he was also a public guy, right?
Yeah, he was a politician.
He was a
or, like,
politician.
one of those Fortune 500 CEOs.
Yeah. So season 6 and 7 wrapped up pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. Had some very interesting things to say about monster history.
Okay.
They end with Dean and Cass being trapped in purgatory.
Again.
Because, well,
Well,
for the
no,
first
not
time.
again. Yeah, but
Because in order to kill.
they're always trapped someplace.
Yeah. Because in order to kill Dick Roman, apparently killing him blasts you to purgatory. So they get blasted to purgatory.
Okay.
Now-
Is that the end of season 7?
Yes.
So now season 8 is another brand new writer, isn't it?
Seasons 8 through 11 are now being handled by Jeremy Carver.
Okay. All right. Was that, in your opinion, and I already know E's opinion.
Oh yeah.
I know E's opinion. How does that fare in terms of the first 2 eras?
Okay, here's the thing. To the first 2 eras, I'm always going to like the first 2 eras more. But what I like about 8 through 11 is that they really expand on the lore. One of the things I love about this show is the lore. So when they do that, it's like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And, I appreciate that. And 11, it looks like tries to end it too. But the problem is it keeps going.
Mm.
And that's really the theme here. It's it's keeping on going, even though they're very like, okay, let's stop here. Oh no? Okay. Let's set it up to stop here. Oh, renewed again? Okay. Let's keep going even more.
So, what is the biggest plot point of 8 through 11?
So 8 through 9 tackles ancient organizations,
Okay.
and 10 as well. And you see the introduction of the Men of Letters, who are like the
That wasn't so
Jedi.
bad.
The Men of Letters are like
No,
uh
it was pretty bad.
they were kind of like the Yodas to your Jedi Padawans.
They're the secret society.
Yeah.
They're the Illuminati.
Not so secret,
Illuminati
bro.
confirmed. Ah,
Oh,
ah.
that's
And you had other organizations like the Thule, which are like a Nazi
That was cool.
necromancer
Yeah.
thing.
I like Thor. I'll give
We
them
didn't
that.
see enough of them though.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
wanted to
thing.
see more. Because expanding on that,
That would have been interesting.
yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, you see them pop up every now and again in the later seasons, but
It
I
would have
know.
made sense to have them battle the Men of Letters because it that just seems
Yeah,
like a
that
natural
was
enemy for them.
yeah.
So they should have done it a little bit longer than that, right?
Nah,
Mhm.
I like the Men of Letters.
I felt like they should have expanded on the Thule, but an all-out war that would have just kept the
No,
show.
but like organization versus organization is what we're
Yeah.
saying.
I know, but
That would have been cool. I
Nah.
like the guy from the Men of Letters. I forgot what his name is.
yeah, but Men and Letter.
Which one? There are a couple.
The one that the only one that ended up surviving the Men of Letters.
Larry Gannam?
No, no, I'm talking about future, present Men of Letters. Remember the British side?
Oh, the British Men of Letters.
Yes.
They're okay. They're
They're
different
completely
chapters, but
Well, but they're part of the same organization, so it's just like,
but
oh,
they're
this is the
run
New York branch,
yeah,
the,
They're like-
the
but there's
London
still
branch.
there's still pretty substantial differences. I'm
Well,
gonna have to
obviously,
say.
yeah. Considering the
It's like-
American Men of Letters were all dead.
It's like Navy and the Navy and like the SEAls. I mean, no,
It-
not
it-
the Navy.
More
and
like the
SEAls.
Army and the SAS.
Yeah. I don't even know what
The Royal
SAS is.
Navy and our Navy. It's kind of like that.
Anyways, so
But I like the British guy. I forgot
Eh,
what his name is.
I mean, he's pretty cool, but
Mick or
no, not Mick.
no,
The other
like
guy.
Mr. Ketch.
Mr. Ketch.
He
He was
dies.
pretty cool. He was pretty cool.
there's
He was.
one main thing that I really hate about him. You should know what that is.
Tell me.
Okay, remember that time where he said he had like a fake brother?
Well, that
That was so lazy. Lazy on
That-
every level.
yeah, that
Yeah, that was pretty cringy, but whatever.
yeah. So now we're gonna. So you have two more sub organizations before I get to the really big one. You have the Grand Coven. Stein family was kind of like a nod to Frankenstein, but as a family. And now the one that really counts, and that is the Knights of Hell. And this is part of that lore expansion that I loved. So the Knights of Hell are a very special branch of demons where they're basically like super. If demons were battle droids, like regular Trade Federation battle droids. The Knights of Hell were your assassin droids, and they come with their own sets of tiddlywinks. They're some of the very first, and they have this whole thing about them. You also, through the Knights of Hell, get set up with the Mark of Cain arc, and which is basically one of the Knights of Hell comes back and really becomes a problem because guess what? She can't die.
Oh, it was that one.
Abaddon.
Abaddon.
And so Dean, they originally deal with her, but what ends up happening in season 8 is that you have more of those civil wars between heaven and hell, and Metatron, the scribe of God, becomes leader of heaven.
Jesus Christ.
Metatron ends up killing Dean that season, as well as,
Kill number 109
yeah.
or something like that.
Oh, he kills him in season 9. My bad.
Okay.
And then you have Demon Dean in season 10 because what the
Which
mark
did
of
not last.
it was a really cool concept,
Which
but it
lasted like an
lasted
episode.
all of 3
Wait,
episodes.
Who was the
Yeah.
writer during that time?
This is still Carver.
Shame on you.
That was
Shame
good,
on you.
right? Demon Dean.
Because what the Mark of Cain does is originally it was stated that Lucifer handpicked and made these guys himself. But what ends up happening is Lucifer gave these guys the Mark of Cain, or the Mark. And basically, whenever they died as humans, they'd be instantly reborn as demons, and really strong ones. So when Dean died, because he had to kill Abaddon, because the only way to kill Abaddon is with the mark in the first blade, which were given to him by Cain. When he dies, he becomes a demon. Season 10 is all about getting rid of the mark, and that's where you have the British Men of Letters come in.
Yep.
British Men of Letters get completely smacked by American hunters, interestingly. And they end up finding a cure for the mark after various trials and errors. But that was not something you really wanted to happen, because the mark also turns out to be the prison for a being that took not only all 4 archangels, Michael, Lucifer, Raphael, Gabriel, but also God himself to beat. And that is the darkness.
Yes. Played by Emily Swallow.
Yes. And season 11 is dealing with the darkness.
Okay. That was a little weird for me.
Yeah.
I think they could have done that a little bit better.
I feel like they
But
shouldn't have done that at
I
all.
think that's where we were at. Would you consider this kind of like the
No, for me, honestly, if 11 ended where it was, I'd be fine with it. But season 12, at least for me, is where the drop off really begins.
okay? So season 12 starts a new era, right?
Yes.
And this is the
Dab Singer era.
okay.
Oh God.
They go all the way to 15, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And there is where the
A lot to
issues
unpack
are.
here.
All right. So the main let's get into before we get into 15, because I think Eli is dying to get into 15, right? 12 through 14. What
Okay.
are the big pop points there? And
So 12, they needed to enlist Lucifer's help to take down the darkness. He doesn't go back to hell right away. He's the villain of season 12.
okay. Good villain.
Oh, wait, no, the British Men of Letters comes there.
Okay.
Season 12, my bad. Again, well, like I said before, only it's actually here. They get spanked.
Mm-hmm.
But before Lucifer is beaten, which I'll get into how that happens, he sires a son with a human woman, Kelly Klein. And that when that happens, typically when an angel, just a regular one, and a human, they have a kid, they produce a stronger being called a Nephilim. So what happens there is angels have like this power source. It's called grace, right? When a Nephilim, the father's grace becomes mixed with the child's soul, and that just like,
It's like a supercharge.
yeah.
Okay.
Now,
It's like
regular ones are scary as it is, but the son of the devil, second strongest archangel in creation, that tends to
Is he
make
an
some heads turn around.
arc Nephilim?
Yeah,
I
pretty
guess.
much.
Like supercharged Nephilim.
So when this kid is born, it rips a hole in reality. And there we are introduced to the idea of a multiverse. And in the particular multiverse, on the other end of this tear in space time, is a world where Sam and Dean were never born and the apocalypse happens.
And what do they call that world? Come on.
Apocalypse world.
I mean, a little on the nose, wouldn't you think? He was like, "Well,
Yeah.
what do I could just imagine them in the writers' room." It was like, "Okay, we're going to do a multiverse. We got to do a multiverse. It has to happen. You know what? Let's create a tear in the fabric of reality. Yeah, let's do that. Let's create another world where everything is different. Yeah, that sounds good. What are we gonna call it? I don't know. Come on, what are we gonna call it, guys? You got me. Come on. It's so simple. It's right there. What are we gonna call it? What happened in that world? The apocalypse. What are we gonna call it? All right, fine. We're gonna call it apocalypse world. I mean, really?
Yeah.
It's a little on the nose for me. It's a little just a little bit.
See, the
Just a little
concept
bit.
was interesting. It's not really supernatural going this route. You know, this is a Marvel thing to do, and I guess they were kind of following the trend what with the Marvel movies. Comic books
Yeah.
in particular deal with multiverses. Am I not
Generally-
right?
And
And Marvel
Yeah.
was beginning to become very popular at that time.
yeah. And the thing about it is that I guess well, we're gonna have to come back to this because thinking about it now, there is a real big continuity problem because Lucifer gets trapped in Apocalypse World with the
Mary.
Winchester's moms
Who came back.
who came back to life from which again something that happens like that's why we haven't mentioned it because it happens all the time in Supernatural. You know, somebody dies, they come back to life. Somebody dies, they come back to life. Somebody dies, they become a demon. Somebody dies, they become a whatever. So he gets trapped over there, and the Michael on that side, right? He says, "Well, I already beat you already." So, right?
Yeah.
So that means there were two Lucifers in this multiverse, and I'm gonna get to that
Well,
later
not
because
in that. There was only
no, I know in the
yeah.
multiversal idea of the supernatural universe, that means that there were two Lucifers, which season 15 then kind of throws that under the bus because then it doesn't make sense. But we'll get into that when we get
Yeah,
into season
I'll
15.
explain that. Don't worry.
You know.
So that's the end of season 12. Lucifer gets trapped on Apocalypse World with Mary. Jack is born,
Apocalypse
who
World.
they tried to stop from being born, but end up, okay, well, he's going to be born. Season 13 sees the growth of Jack.
Which is very, very fast.
Yes, he aged himself up. He's an all-powerful being. He just did it.
He's like reverse Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda is still Baby Yoda after 50 years. Jack is like full on adult after like 3 months.
After a day.
Yeah. So, it's really, really, really weird, but whatever. Anyway.
Yes. So season 13 sees the conflict between Apocalypse World and Earth Prime. That's what I call it.
Earth.
On Earth Prime, in the season before, they reintroduced yellow-eyed demons and expanded their lore. They were called the Princes of Hell. This season sees one rise to power and claim the throne of hell, but not before I mentioned that Crowley died, sealing Lucifer in Apocalypse World. So that's why that power vacuum exists. So you have the Prince of Hell, Asmodeus, come into power. And then, so on Apocalypse World, Lucifer's like, oh, okay, we got to find a way out of here. During their travels, they meet Apocalypse World Michael, who is apparently 2 times stronger for some reason they never really went into. Although there are some fans that had their theories. And you had Jack. So there was a lot of going between universes. We're gonna help the other person, even though now we're going to this side, but now we're going back this way. But wait, they're still back there. We got to go back. A lot of that. The conclusion: Asmodeus is killed by Gabriel, the archangel, who was dead but now isn't. But then he gets killed by Apocalypse World Michael. Kind of sucked. I'll get into that later. But the very last thing that happens is Lucifer makes a deal with Michael to go back to Earth Prime after the Winchesters successfully get back to Earth Prime with Jack and their mom. When Jack finds out about this, it kind of pisses him off because he's like, you made a deal with Michael. He's this bastard I've been fighting, seriously. And this it causes a rift between the two. And Lucifer had been trying to find Jack the whole season. But when this happens, that connection breaks. And what he does is he takes Jack's power for himself, taking his grace. And he becomes super duper charged, like as if he was possessing Sam. He leaves with Jack and Sam because Sam was trying to save Jack, of course.
Mhm.
But then you have Dean and Michael in the bunker. Michael makes it a point that, okay, he's too powerful now. There's no way to beat him. He's going to unmake the world in like a week. And so Dean is like, okay, but what if you possess me? And he goes, that could work. You're my sword, my true vessel. Maybe we got something here. And then Dean goes, all right, well, I'm completely against this, but there's literally no choice. I drive, you're the engine. Michael and Lucifer fight. This is supposed to be the fight that rips the world in half. But it doesn't. And it's a
Stupid.
little anticlimactic.
It's
Yeah.
stinky.
Isn't
Dean,
it?
yeah, and they start
Ball?
introducing
No, it's like
energy blasts.
it's like
and
the
stuff
low
like
budget.
that.
It's like the low budget. Yeah. It's the low budget version of Dragon Ball Z. Practically.
Yes. Case in point, supercharged Lucifer falls to Michael Dean's hands, and the world is saved, except not, because Michael reneges on their deal and takes full control. And so now you have a twice stronger times another 2 times stronger Michael, because he's in his perfect vessel, and the Winchesters with a Nephilim who has no power. And what are we going to do? How do you rectify this situation? And that's what season 14 focuses on. Eventually, through weird, oh, this is where things get really, really wacky. A stick from another universe supposedly hurts one of the strongest beings in creation. I mean, there's a case you can make for it, but even then, it's very flimsy. They end up beating him. Jack gets his powers back. He loses his soul in the process. Not good. Soullessness in Supernatural means you become kind of a murderous, borderline. Yeah. Eventually, Jack spirals so far out of control, this warrants the return of God, who recently came back in season 11, but has to step in for this because this is like a God level threat. Sam and Dean, they're on their way to murder Jack or, stop him. But they find out that, well, you know what? We can kind of work this out. He doesn't need to die. God gets mad because this throws away his perfect story. And because of that, God becomes the villain of season 15.
Okay, so now we're at season 15. Eli has been waiting, chomping at the bit to talk about season 15. Season 15 starts us with Chuck,
Yes,
God,
that's God.
Chuck, who was a writer, who was introduced as a writer earlier before
In season 4 and
and had the
5.
big reveal with Metatron
In season 11.
that he was God,
Metatron sucked.
and he was a
Okay. I'm not
he was a screenwriter for all of reality.
Yep.
And
He's really just an allegory for the writers.
yeah. And so now Chuck, God, is now going to write the final story in the final season of Supernatural. Eli, what do you think?
I already said it. It's garbage. It's trash.
Season 15 had really, really rough patches.
It was trash.
Yes.
really, really rough, especially
Bad.
when you consider that season 15 is supposed to wrap up the entire show in a nice little bow.
They practically pulled off like the worst version of a Rise of Skywalker. Like it's worse than Rise of Skywalker.
Yes, there are a lot of problems with season 15. We'll get into that, but it's just yeah, it's very problematic in places. So
Which is sad because I think the fans were really, really amped up to get the final chapter, right? The end of the road, as it were, right?
interestingly enough,
How did the fans react to season 15?
so I follow the Reddit community over on Reddit. It's more or less mixed reviews, but you certainly have those posts that really there are digs to make. And I at least I would argue that there are more people that are upset than they are satisfied.
Which makes sense because I think we were all disappointed. I think maybe that's the word.
You know,
Disappointed.
here's the thing, and I've said this before to AJ, and I'm gonna be straight up. It really shows all of Supernatural's problems. Just it's really just all of Supernatural's problems just stuffed into one season. That's literally all there is to it.
So the thing about for me, right? Excuse me. For me, and I think this may be a problem of binging Supernatural and stuff like that. But and I found the same thing when we were binging Battlestar Galactica. There's a common theme that kind of gets rehashed over and over again in certain shows, and some of them hide them better than others. Supernatural really does not, right? And Supernatural, the running theme has always been it's family, right? That is the biggest thing, and they do that really well, right? But the other thing is the level of distrust that the brothers have for each other, because they can never tell each other the truth, and it happens over and over, and that's the source of conflict between the two brothers, basically, right? They don't argue about anything else except for the fact that, Dean, you should have told me the truth. Dean, why did you lie to me? Sam, why didn't you tell me this? So, and it happens all the time, and then they say, you know what, we're family, we won't do this anymore, and 2 episodes later it happens again. You know what I'm saying? And it continues to happen, and it happens how many times in like season 15?
I mean, yeah, and then
It's just that's the one thing that I really do find annoying about Supernatural, is that at some point, yeah, make it a theme, make it a part of the whole thing, but at some point you got to stop it.
there was even a season that really put that to bed.
and they brought it back. Why? There are other sources of conflict that you can generate in the show than that. You know what I'm saying? You
Hmm.
you can even go and say, you know what? Maybe Dean is more extreme than Sam. Maybe Sam doesn't go far enough, and maybe you have a conflict there. But it's always them lying to each other, and that kind of drove me nuts. Not so much, but I think in season 15 when it started happening again, it's like, you know what, really, guys, this is how you're gonna choose to end your this really great run that you had with them lying to each other again.
And there's another issue that really pronounced itself, and it's funny because one of the characters even made a commentary on it. Supernatural, and again, I get it. It's a show. You have to have fillers, but in a season like this, you really should have had so much less filler.
And it was a shortened season too. It wasn't your standard 23 episode run.
Yeah, even Death is like, dude, you have more important things to do. What are you doing with some stupid crack vampire case?
So season 15 was a little bit less than out of all the seasons, and I know that a lot of hard work is put into making a show and stuff like that, and you could tell that the actors gave it everything that they could. You know what I'm saying? It
See,
wasn't I think it was more, we expected something more and we wanted something more and we just didn't get it.
see, here's the thing. I happen to disagree with that statement because I happen to believe the writers completely lazed out this last season. Like they probably didn't even
Well,
care.
I didn't mention the writers.
Oh,
I didn't. I said everybody else.
okay. Everybody else, yeah, yeah.
You know.
Everybody else, yeah. They're like, they gave it. They really tried their best to make it a good season, but like it was just like really bad, and nothing you can do can change that.
Like,
Not even acting.
here's my thing. Um, put a gun to my head. I can't really tell you a specific episode that happened in season 15 because it wasn't all that memorable. You know, like if you told me what happened, with this season, what were the big things that happened in this season, I completely would draw a blank. You know, like I think you can make the case that Jack got his power back. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? But other than that, like I couldn't mention a specific thing that happened in the final season, except for one thing. But I'm gonna get to that a little bit later because it deals with the second to last episode.
See, here's the thing though. I'm gonna mention another problem because I have a lot to go through, but I'm gonna try and make this really really short. One of the problems is the to make it in general just the characters. Um, I mentioned this to you, Cass specifically. They really tried to make it emotional. They really did. I honestly just me being the person here who I'm not like I'm not really I'm not as
Emotional.
no, I'm not as
Invested?
no, I don't really follow the show like you do. But
Yeah, so invested.
yeah, I'm not that invested. Yeah. But the thing is, they really tried to character building is one of their main problems. No matter what. Castiel is the perfect example because for probably half of the season he was just Sam and Dean's dog. On a leash. Just friggin' on a leash. He didn't practically
Oh,
nothing
season
for
15 though, right?
I mean, it really cranks up at around season 11 once he begins to have his powers fade, and even in season 8, but or season 9. But we'll get to that. Let me just I'm gonna wrap up
yeah,
season
not yeah, you
15, and
should do
then
that.
we can open it up. So at the very very end, what ends up happening is they have this smorgasbord of cosmic entities dying left and right, coming back, and this powers up Jack to like phenomenal levels.
But we
to the
don't know
point.
it.
Yeah, we don't know it. It comes to the point where they have the final showdown with Chuck, who decides to punch them, even though one of his punches should have completely obliterated every aspect of their existence. But I won't get into that. What ends up happening is Jack, while there, absorbs all the god power that's being released, and he just takes all of it away from Chuck. And he effectively becomes the new god, putting to rest the god aspect of this arc.
Hmm. But Chuck doesn't die.
No, they leave him
No.
alive. But he can
Powerless.
he can never regain his powers again.
Hmm.
The very last episode, which I'll give them this, while the rest of this season was a huge unmitigated mess. That's what it felt like to me. At least I kind of got a bittersweet ending.
Hold on. You forgot. Did it happen in the first episode? And the last? Yeah, it did, right?
Which one?
Where it didn't happen in the episode before, right?
No, it
It
happened
happened in the
in the
last
very
episode.
last
Okay,
one.
all right.
So in the very last episode, Sam and Dean are free of all cosmic level burdens. No one writing apocalypses for them. Everything's great. They're back to regular hunting monsters. While they're on a case with vampires, Dean dies in the process. And they give him a send off.
The longest send off in the history of send offs. Was it like 20 minutes that it took him before he died?
Well, I mean,
It was emotional though.
It was emotional.
Yeah.
It was emotional. And so,
I mean, you're unpacking 15 seasons of a relationship.
it was. But it felt a little bit more drawn out than it should have been. But that's just me.
Yeah.
But it was a good scene.
And so Dean passes, and normally what you would have, and this is where I'll give some growth. Normally, what they do is they do anything to bring the other one back. But Dean says, no, let it be. And Sam lives out the rest of his life.
For the first time, he actually listens to Dean.
Well, he actually listened to him again in season
Very rare.
8, but yeah, it's
Very
very rare
rare.
that this happens.
Yeah.
And Sam eventually gets to heaven, and it's all, I'm not going to say sunshine and rainbows because, Dean still died, and it was, they didn't have the exact happy ending they were looking for. But that's the end of the show.
It was
And
good.
so now let's open up the conversation to what you guys think of Supernatural overall, what your nitpicks are, what worked, what didn't. Let's open it up to that now.
So
as
I
we-
already said my biggest nitpick with Supernatural is the relationship between the brothers, and the relationship between the brothers was very well done, except for that one point where they kept on rehashing the whole distrust between them. I wish they had just let that go and then move forward. But in terms of that, that was my biggest gripe with Supernatural. You know,
Two things. First off, too many characters. Too many characters so that they couldn't actually expand on. They had to expand on a lot of characters for this show.
there was a lot of people that joined Sam and Winch and Dean, throughout the years. You had the what was it? The sheriffs.
Oh,
Right.
yes. Jody Mills,
I forgot
Donna.
Donna something or other.
You also had
Then you had Garth.
Cass's Vessel's daughter, Claire. You got Garth. And
Rufus.
Rufus. Oh God.
Bobby, who we
Very
haven't even
important one.
mentioned,
Very,
right?
very important one. He becomes like their father.
Mary comes back, does some hunting with them. Cass is always a member of the. Well, he's more the main squad, right? So
Cass is main squad. Crowley
Crowley's
becomes
on the
main
side.
squad later, but he's there for a very long time.
Yeah, so there's a lot of people, like he said, where
Too many.
Rowena was
Oh,
another one.
She ends up
She was
becoming main
big,
squad too.
So they've had, and
Or
then
maybe
you had what's his name, the scribe,
Kevin,
Kevin Tran, right?
Benny,
Benny's another guy. So there's
Donatello. There's a
like you
lot of
said,
people,
Ian, there's a lot of people that kind of almost made main squad, right?
but
And
didn't.
it's kind of hard. Maybe too many of them. And do you
Yeah,
think?
because like they didn't give enough time to like really scope out the character building for honestly most of the characters, and if they did character build, they practically just did the same thing over and over again, like you said.
Yeah, like you were saying, when Crowley died, kind of sucked, but it wasn't like super impactful.
Yeah,
When Rowena dies,
but for me, I think that
you
was
know,
I'll just whatever. But it's like it really didn't impact me on any of these characters except for Sam and Dean. They just really didn't character build, and like I said before, they didn't character build right. Sometimes they character build did reversely,
Reverse character building.
reverse character builded, and
Building.
that just sucked.
there's also one other gripe that I have with the show is that sometimes some of the storylines were kicked to the side very, very quickly.
And
Yeah.
they were
I think-
very interesting.
Yeah, I think you guys can agree with that,
They
right?
put away their best storylines.
Yeah, and some of the storylines that weren't so great, they
Gave more credence to
yeah,
those.
they those overstayed their welcomes. You know what I'm saying? So
And they didn't follow. They don't follow their
they were good with their
Oh.
lore except for the last season.
No, for
here we
a
go.
lot of
So
the season.
there are
I don't know.
very clear rules to the lore. Some of them get workshopped, some of them get made. Some of them are just completely written over and it's very abrasive. So for instance, in season 15, when you get burned, you're dead for good unless you have a cosmic entity throw in a favor for you. That was one thing that they completely just said, yeah, you know what? Screw that. That's a rule. Second thing. Um
I want to say.
Shoot. Oh,
I want to say.
go ahead.
No.
No,
I
no,
want to say
you-
like
you sh- go. So go ahead, say.
exploiting.
Oh yes.
exploiting
the
death.
way death is made. So when the original death died, it kind of set a trend because that's a thing that happened. The next reaper that dies after an incarnation of death has died, that dead reaper then becomes the next death. This becomes very heavily exploited at the second to last episode
that
when I
was
said cosmic
bad.
entities were dying left and right.
That was bad.
Exploiting
Because you
death.
had, and then that's another thing in that very episode too. I don't care how, there's a very clear, or at least to me, and the one I have built in my mind, considering all the lore in the show, there's a very clear hierarchy of power in Supernatural. Lucifer kills Death with his signature move, Snap. Even if he was powered by God, he should not be able to do that. Like that is a gross. Even in season 5, when he bound Death to him to do his bidding, he didn't even mess with him then. Now all of a sudden he's just, oh well, that's Death. Goodbye. That is just. Ugh,
He didn't like that.
I didn't like either.
so bad. And then there's other things, and I could get
Too much
into
to get
every
into.
single one of them, but we honestly just don't have time for it.
Yeah.
It gets really bad. Believe me when I say that.
Like,
So are we
really,
coming
really
back
bad.
in 5 years?
Here's okay. No,
No,
here's
no, please, no.
no.
Who's the one that said that? It was Jensen, right?
I believe so. But here's the thing: the only way you can feasibly do it is if you give the show a complete reboot. You cannot do it with the way you've left it right now. I was just talking about this with a friend of mine the other day. All the major players are dead. they've killed probably all of the major pagan gods. They've killed Zeus. They've killed an incarnation of Hades. They've killed Odin, or rather, Lucifer did that. All the gods, not a factor. Hell, all the high ranking guys are dead. White eyes, yellow eyes, red eyes, not really. Uh, hell is just in shambles. It is not even a threat anymore. Same goes with heaven and all of the high ranking angels there. Monsters too. The alphas, Eve, Leviathans, all taken care of. God Himself, death, not a factor. You need a hard reboot if you're gonna come back in 5
And
years.
you know what they need? You know what they need especially? They need for freaking CW to stop being the freaking helicopter parent you freaking are.
Well, how about this then? Because DC did it with Crisis on Infinite Earths. Have a flashpoint
No,
in
no, 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 no.
No,
in
please.
I want
Supernatural,
just no.
or
no.
you can have Jack, who's a fledgling god in this thing. Well, a fledgling me, because they ask him, "Well, what do we call it?" Well, I'm me, right? A fledgling me who's now trying to rebuild. Because remember, and this is the thing that I was going to ask you about before. Chuck decides that he's tired of everything. You know, he's tired of the insubordination that Sam and Dean have for them, even though he's their favorite Sam and Dean in the multiverse, right? And he decides to end all the other universes except for that one. So technically, there's only one universe right now, right? So, two things. One, if there was multi-universes, right? And apparently it looks like there were multi-Lucifers, does that mean there were multi-Chucks?
No,
No.
that's the one constant. Chuck
Yeah.
was always the one writing them.
Okay, so then why do we have different versions of Lucifer all over the place?
Because apparently
That
those
was-
guys aren't high enough up on the cosmic chain to even be
That was
like they say. So there are beings that he clearly can't control, and those are the ones I'm going to attribute to as the constants in the universe. Those being the empty, God himself, and Amara.
The
Those are the
darkness.
three dogs that are the three entities he cannot touch.
Okay.
Really. Otherwise, he could god up more archangels. He could god up more worlds.
Okay.
It'll be complicated, but he does it.
So in that respect, then couldn't me
No,
Jack?
because he is the god.
Right. So couldn't he? So again, going to the whole 5-year thing, he's new at this. In his attempt to rebuild the multiverse, could he screw up?
No, 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 no.
I'm just
I don't-
saying. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to
The
figure out
prob-
ways of doing this. You know?
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but introducing a multiverse was the beginning of where things started to go wrong.
Yes, I agree.
I wouldn't capitalize on that.
But that's
part
how you,
of
that's how they would bring it back.
No,
No.
you just
You
need
know.
a hard reboot.
You wanna
Honestly.
if you wanna really continue off the
Do it like
supernatural,
Fringe.
you have your way. Literally, the last episode, Sam's son. But even still, I
What
am
is he
not
gonna do?
Yeah, that's exactly my point. There's no way you can possibly continue it from where they are. You want to get into what? Maybe he stumbles across monsters. First off, it would be like a pretty bad way to start it.
Wait a second, though. Doesn't that mean that technically Amara's dead also?
No, because Amara is part of Jack. Because remember, God
so he's
fused
in
with
the-
Amara,
Okay.
but then when Jack absorbed Chuck, he also took Amara into him too. So they're in sync.
Okay.
They just
So
need
they're
completely-
balanced.
Yeah.
They
Okay.
just need, but this is what they need. It has to have nothing to do with supernatural at all. Like,
Well, this version of the continuity.
and please, can we not get into gods and stuff? Like, that was one of their main problems,
Well, I
and
think,
that's one of my main
but
problems.
I think that kind of was in a show called Supernatural, he had to be the main villain. Had
No,
to.
I think he's talking about the other pantheons.
No, like
Oh,
I'm talking
oh.
about every god.
But that's what I'm saying. I think Supernatural, the way the show was
you
constructed,
kind of have to.
he had to be the main big bad at the very
Well,
end. There was no other way that it
Mm,
could have happened
you
because
could have ended at 11 and that be it. You didn't
Yeah.
have to have
You
an
coulda ended
actual
at
fight
season
with
5.
God.
I know, but given that they didn't, he was the only guy left on the board.
But
He had to be the guy.
even still, I
But
just
that's again, that's a byproduct of having gone on for so long.
yeah. That's just
So my question is, what's the next Supernatural?
you know what.
The
I don't
next
even want one.
Supernatural is going to be a retelling of 1 through 5. Maybe if you want, you could sprinkle in elements from 8 through 12.
I feel like
Because 8 through 12, honestly, I feel like some of those elements worked.
Yeah,
Not
but-
all of them did, but for the most part, some did.
yeah, but I understand that that's what a lot of people want. At least I think. I don't know. I don't speak for all of the Super SPN fans, but even still, like CW being the way they are.
I think they need to change.
No, yeah, but like,
change. What do you call those? CW change networks.
yes, but that's the thing. Can
I
they?
feel like they should.
Can they though?
That
Probably not.
That's so then they can't do that.
CW won't give up Supernatural.
Yeah,
There's no incentive for that for them to do that.
CW sucks. No matter
So-
what you say, most of their shows, actually all of their shows, are practically trash.
You
no
liked
matter what
Arrow.
you say. Arrow was good at the beginning
You like
before
Flash.
CW. Even still, those shows weren't necessarily the best, even when they were good. But that's besides the point.
You like Legends of Tomorrow.
That wasn't half bad.
Legends of Tomorrow was bonkers.
That wasn't half bad. I'll
They
give
knew
them
they
that.
were bonkers, and they went with the bonkersness of it.
But that's
Which, interestingly enough, Supernatural was in Legends of Tomorrow. By the way,
very loosely.
yes, they were there.
and they better not screw up Walker.
Baby was
But-
there.
That's besides the point.
Yeah, and Jensen's going to be on season
Mm.
3 of The Boys.
Yes.
So, all right. So, final thoughts on Supernatural.
Well, for me, like I said, if they're gonna bring it back, it has to be a hard reboot. Otherwise, for 15 seasons of a show, I loved it. I hated. I loved it. I hated at some points. Not hate. That's a strong word, but I certainly didn't agree with all the directions that they made. But it's like Chuck said in season 5. It's the blemishes that make it beautiful. So I don't know if I'm gonna give kind of a rating type thing. For me, I'm gonna give it like a 9, no, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. But if I were to limit it to only 1 through 5, I'm giving that a 9.5.
Okay.
Let me just make this point. For those of you who came from Get Geek, you guys should already know how I rate my stuff. And considering the fact that I just do not like half of the show, you guys can already see where this is going. 4 out of 10.
Oh, that's harsh. I'm not going to go that far. I think it's a good solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Because there was, listen, 15 seasons is tough. 15 to come up with 15 seasons worth of story is not an easy thing to do. And they did it, and they kept all their fans. So that's a big thing, because I look at a show like Heroes from back in the day. Heroes was like one of the biggest things ever. You know what I'm saying? And their first season was like phenomenal. They could not recreate it afterwards. And Supernatural did it for the most part for 15 years. You know what I'm saying? So, on that note, I would have to say it's a solid 7 or 8.
5 out of 10, actually, just to correct myself.
Okay. I'm gonna go 7.5. Let's put it that way. I think I'm gonna agree with Andre in that the first 5 seasons were really, really good.
Yeah.
And they had some really awesome episodes. I mean, the Scooby Doo episode was awesome,
That
right?
was good, but
The one where
filler.
Dean died, Happy Death Day,
The
was
French
awesome.
mistake.
Yeah, there was a lot of really, really good episodes in there. A lot of
Misha?
invented
Your
episodes.
name is Misha?
Exactly.
That was good. That was good.
They knew how to poke fun of themselves. They weren't too serious, and they did what they had to do for 15 seasons. So for that, I commend them. And I listen, 15 seasons. I'm glad that we started watching it, and I'm glad that we ended it. And I think it was one of these things where it's like, you know what, uh, there was definitely way more good than bad,
It was
right?
bittersweet.
Right. So, um, Supernatural, it's the end of the road.
I'm doing a rewatch of 1 through 5, by the way.
Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna join you in that one though. There's a lot that we're doing. So all right. So on that note, I just want to remind everybody that if you love the show, remember we're still in our infancy. This is what our 6th episode. So if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. That's the best way that we'll know whether you like the show or not. And so until the next time, I want to thank you for joining us on the CrossGen podcast. I hope to see you next week. And until then,
May our paths cross again.
oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, that was it. That was it.
That was it.
That was good.
All right.
Yeah.
Carry
Later,
on,
peeps.
people of the interwebs.